much for the book, and for all of us for listening to him give us just a little bit of it. I will not go to what my friends have already talked about. Let me briefly, just 1 second, say that this book kind of gets into what Kenyans are going through every day. He calls it everyday life through the lenses of Mau Mau, or understanding Mau Mau. In his book, Githuku has tried so very much to bring us into what he calls the critical publics, the areas, the theaters of action, from the colonial period to the 50 years or so after independence. And what is even more interesting is to see him bring in so many sources to tell this story, and which is the art of a historian. He has used many documents from here and abroad, call them archival documents, that many historians have not had a chance to use to tell this story. Now, in looking, or rather discussing his these publics, the colonial period, it looks at Mau Mau as one of those many theaters. But he also doesn't lose sight of other areas like the independent church movements that spoke of the same, letting Muzungu leave us alone. The historical injustice, then they never called them so, those are new terms now, they are saying they need their land back. But then, the same story would go on to after independence. So much so that whenever you hear MRC, you ought to run away. The Mau Mau struggle to Githuku is not just the physical one, or rather just not the only one that people go into the forest. He is simply saying it is a luta continua, that there is so much of what happened then that continues to this day. The injustice, the inequality, and the yearning for whatever it is people thought independence would be. I'm sure my uncle, who has never returned from the forest since 1952, his independence would have meant that maybe his children go to school. He never even saw them anyway. He would stay in the forest dead, of course, you would imagine. His family still languishes in a lot of problems in Chuka, although Githuku decides, Meru just mentions them, we were absolutely, or the Meru and the other peoples were critical in this Mau Mau. It's also instructive to note that the issue of Mungiki is simply not a Kikuyu business. It is Mungiki is the face you see of all social injustices. As I'll not go to everything, but let me have a wish that I would have wished Githuku did. Whereas he has put together this story by using various sources of information from, you remember the songs of, we call them those people singing about independence and what we expect, to, I wish there was even the Mudirego, to tell us what those old men and women thought they were fighting for. But more so, and more recently, there's a man called Kamaru. Kamaru would speak not just to the educated. When Goethe writes to the most educated, Kamaru speaks to more people, educated or not, and speaking about the same social ills and problems that Kenyans have gone through. This book would have been richer, I'm not saying it is not rich, would have been richer, and the voices of my mother and the mother of Ombongi unspoken, and we heard the voices of those ordinary people who are still alive, who are still languishing in their own poverty without land. My take on all this is that we missed the first step at independence. We did not address the issues that the Mau Mau were fighting for: independence and land. We ignored land, and even policies, we are still dealing with them or not dealing with them at all, or selectively, so that the disillusionment that gets into the young, the so-called, the children of Mau Mau, will linger until all that is done. You used a nice term which I liked, the Johega. The Johega is not just the educated, Githuku. This is the cunning and all these people, and they are all over us. So how to tame the Johegas, sometimes called the MPs, when you want to be naughty, is something that we need to guard ourselves on. And remember, the Johega are going to be the Mogumo on the Mohote tree now, unless we do something about it. Thank you very much.